Hey everybody, Happy New Year and welcome to 2017. I'm Matt Hogan with Element Real Estate in Half Moon Bay, and one of the things that's really important to me as a local homeowner, as an investor, and as a real estate professional is to have a solid understanding of our local housing market. The only way to do that, the only way I know how to do that is to sift through all of the real estate data. So given that it was a new year, I took the opportunity to aggregate all of the real estate data for the Coastside communities for 2016. I crunched it, I analyzed it, and at the end of the day, I found some really interesting things. 2016 was a year of significant change for our local housing market. I want to share with you the important findings. I think it will help you make the most informed real estate decisions as you move throughout 2017 and beyond. So with that said, let's dive into the numbers and find out what we learned. 2016, a year in review, a year in correction. So I just gave you the punchline of everything that I reviewed, and essentially it's the fact that in 2016 we started a market correction. Some of you might have felt that, others might have seen that. The data most definitely supports that, and I'm going to show it to you in the following slides. But the first thing is that housing inventory increased. We sold less homes, and those homes took longer to sell. They sat on the market longer. The homes that were sold in 2016 sold for less money relative to list price. Average home prices were more or less flat. And in December, interest rates hit a 2-year high. We'll talk about that in detail. Is this good news? Is this bad news? It probably sounds bad news. We'll dissect what that means, and we'll dissect specifically what that means for you guys, whether you're a buyer or a seller or perhaps a renter wanting to buy. But first, I want to get into the numbers and show you the actual data that supports those findings. So the first thing I mentioned is that the housing inventory increased. So you see in Half Moon Bay, the inventory increased 21%, a pretty good jump in the number of homes available on the market. El Granada, big drop. Montara, big drop. Moss Beach had a slight gain. And the overall number for the Coastside was that there was about 9-10% more houses on the inventory. Now, all things equal, more inventory means more options for buyers and can act as a downward force on price. We'll find out if it did a little bit later. Second thing is that homes took longer to sell. So this is an analysis of what we call days on market. This is the number of days it takes to sell a house after it's listed. So you can see in Half Moon Bay an 18% jump in the time it took to make a sale year over year. El Granada had a drop. Things sold faster in El Granada. Montara had a drop. Things sold faster in Montara. Now, it's not coincidental that these are the only two markets that had less inventory available in 2016. Less inventory available has an influence on how fast things sell. Moss Beach, it took longer to sell, and overall, in general, it took quite a bit longer to sell a home in 2016 than it did in 2015. Less homes were sold. In Half Moon Bay, we sold more homes, a little bit more homes. But keep in mind that inventory increased 20%. So inventory increased 20%, but we really only sold 3% more homes. The net is that we didn't really sell as much homes as we did last year relative to the amount of inventory that was available. Huge drop in homes sold in El Granada. Big drop in Montara, huge drop in Moss Beach. And overall, as a Coastside market, we sold about 8% less homes, and that's significant. So the next thing that jumped out of the numbers at me was that homes sold for less money relative to the list price in 2016. So what it essentially means is, are people getting what they asked for their homes? In the Coastside as a whole, people got more than their asking price in 2015, less than their asking price in 2016. And what does it mean in terms of dollars? Well, if you listed a home for $1 million in 2015, it would have sold for $1,009,000. You would have gotten more than what you asked for. In 2016, that same home would have sold for $986,000, more or less. So that's about a $23,000 drop year over year for the same home. Pretty significant here as well. All right, the next finding was that the average home prices were flat. Now, this is different than the previous metric, which was comparing the sold price to the original list price. This is just the average price of all homes that were sold 2016 to 2015. Half Moon Bay had a drop of 1.5%. El Granada was slightly down. Montara, big jump, The reason there was a big jump is there was two homes in particular that sold in that $2 to $3 million range in Montara in 2016 that really pushed the numbers up. If you took those homes out, you would see that the graph for Montara followed in suit with the rest of the communities. Moss Beach slightly up, and the Coastside combined set 0.7% growth, so pretty flat in terms of home growth year over year. You'll see in a couple slides that this is the first year where we saw flat prices in a few years. Okay, one of the last things I want to touch on is the interest rate jump. And here's the jump. You can see around election day, early, beginning of November, you can see that rates jumped. And yeah, they jumped. They were at 3.5%-ish, and now they jumped to 4.5%, and they actually remain high in the first couple weeks of 2017. So this looks like it's not a good thing, but the reality is that it's actually not a bad thing. And to understand why, pull your perspective out a little bit. Here's the same graph over a 10-year time frame. You can see that the jump that we received around election day looks a lot smaller relative to where rates have been over the course of 10 years. This is actually the same graph over a 45-year span, and you can see that you can barely even notice that slight jump we had in November. It looks pretty small because it is pretty small. So in the grand scheme of things, rates are still really low relative to the average over time. And let us not forget that one of the main reasons the rates have been low is because the Fed has jumped in and kept them there as a tool by which to stimulate the economy and pull the nation out of a recession. I'm oversimplifying this a little bit for purposes of this conversation, but in general, the fact that the rates are increasing is a function of an economy that's recovering and getting healthy. So is the rate increase a bad thing? Not necessarily. So what about this correction that we spoke about earlier? Is it a bad thing? And the answer is that it's not a bad thing. It's actually quite natural. This is complex stuff. I'm going to blow through it pretty quickly. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. We can talk about it in more detail later. But essentially, this graph here on the right is looking at the average home prices of homes that were sold in the Coastside year over year. And you can see 2009 to 2010, no growth, and then we had a couple years of nominal growth. Then 2013, 14, 2015, we had huge growth, almost 17%, 15%, almost 14%. Keep in mind that the average annual growth for homes in California over the past 45 years is somewhere between 6 and 7%. So when you start to see 16, 17% growth a year, it's huge. And then you can see this is 2016 where we had essentially flat home prices. Now, things can't grow at this rate for long periods of time. And the reason is, we have a situation where the real estate appreciation vastly outpaces income growth, then people simply can't afford to buy homes. They get boxed out of the market. First-time buyers, who are really important to keeping a real estate market healthy and growing, are completely boxed out of the market. Demand drops because nobody can afford to buy. Supply of homes increases, and then you're in for a substantial price adjustment. And when that happens, you have the potential for real erosion of equity, a real erosion of net worth, and people's ability to invest back in the market, which causes a host of other issues that we simply just don't want. So the net is an adjustment, a period of nominal, flat, even slightly negative growth after a period of hyper appreciation is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a natural mechanism to keep the market balanced. So just to validate that point even further, take a look at Bay Area home prices over the past 30 years. You'll see we had periods of home price appreciation, big appreciation, followed by a period of an adjustment, a market correction. Another home price appreciation period, another adjustment. This adjustment was accelerated in part by the dot-com bust that happened around the 2001, 2002 timeframe. Another big period of home appreciation and another adjustment. This market correction was not due to natural causes. This was driven in large by the housing underwriting banking crisis, which went down in 2008, 2009. This is the most recent period of home appreciation that we went through. Big growth, 60%, in some areas 65, 70%. And this last area where the yellow circle here is 2016, where we saw prices starting to flatten off. All right, so what does this all mean for me? How do I use this data so I can make better decisions in 2017? So let's take a look at buyers first. You're no longer chasing a runaway market as you were for the past couple of years. Crazy bidding wars, offers 10, 20% over asking, a dozen offers within the first week. that a home lists, these days are over. At least they're over for now. So stay cool, be pragmatic, know that you have a bit more leverage in the buying process. If you use that leverage strategically, you have a better chances of getting a better deal. For renters that are looking to become buyers or first-time buyers, we're entering an exciting time for you guys. Rates are increasing, which means there's going to be more people to get in the business of lending money. That's going to open up better, more creative programs for buyers and first-time buyers. The years of, you need 20% minimum to buy a home, those are already starting to change, and I'm seeing the programs open up. So talk to your lender or talk to me, and I can educate you on some of these things further. Also, I think the rents are going to stay very, very high in 2017, and the home prices are planing off a little bit. So the cost gap between renting and owning is going to shrink even further, which is going to make owning a much more, obvious option for renters. We spent a lot of time thinking about how to get renters into home ownership. If you have any other more questions about this, give me a ring. I'd love to talk to you about that further. Sellers. So the main piece of advice I have for sellers in a market that is in correction or adjusting is do not overprice your home if you want to sell it. Doing this carries a lot more risk and you can end up chasing a downward market. So let me just explain what this means. Let's say your home market value is $1 million and you really want to put it on the market for $1,025,000 because you think you might be able to get it and gosh, you could really use that extra 25 grand. So you list it for $1,025,000. It doesn't sell after 1 month, 2 months. After the third month, it's still not selling. Let's say the market dropped 2% in that 3-month period. And you start to consider, well, you know what, let's reduce that home from $1,025,000 to $1 million. And you do. Well, guess what? Your home is now worth $980 grand because of that 2% market drop. So this is what it means to chase a downward market. Be very careful here. And if you want to sell your home, you're serious about it, make sure you price it competitively. If you don't, you could end up wasting a lot of time and potentially losing a lot of money. The last thing is that the market is still high. Interest rates are still relatively low. It might be a good time to think about a refi. If you have significant equity in your property, you can pull that cash out. And if the market does correct significantly, then you have cash on hand to make investments that could be profitable. All right, so that's a wrap, guys. If you have any questions about the things we covered, about buying, about selling, about the financial side, about the local real estate market, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. To summarize, I would say that the real estate market started to change. It entered a correction period in 2016. The rates also started to increase at the end of the year. Neither of these things are inherently bad, and both are part of larger natural economic cycles. Real estate is still one of the best investments you can make in the world. So with that said, I want to wish everybody a healthy and abundant 2017. You live in one of the most amazing communities on the planet, so get out there and enjoy it, and remember to live local. Thank you.